The other day I saw a group of young women walking around in the mall wearing matching pajamas, and which I thought was kind of cute. But it made me think about the place we are at as a species with regards to relationship between men and women, and how we are clearly in a phase of female empowerment, and which is a good thing. It's for the first time women don't need men, and so they can cater their life to something that is much more genuine and much more authentic. They can truly go after what they really want. Now, there are women who like men. You know, there are women who really like men. Now, unfortunately, a like or a love or an obsession with the opposite sex can also come from an unhealthy place. So, you know, while the number of women out there that want men or like men in their life are diminishing, that means that the ratio between those who have a healthy love for men and those who have an unhealthy love for men is becoming far more dangerous. And so men have to be men have to be extra careful when getting in a relationship with a woman nowadays than they did, let's say, 20 years ago. And even then it was bad. Even 20 years ago it was bad, but not as bad as it is today. What I mean by an unhealthy love is there are women who absolutely adore men, but it comes from a broken place. It comes from perhaps issues with their father, abandonment, neglect, and this creates such an exaggerated appetite for the opposite sex. And by the way, this happens for men too, in the opposite direction. Such an obsession that woman, while you feel like she may love you and you'd be like, wow, what a breath of fresh air, I found a woman who loves me. It turns out she doesn't necessarily love you, she just loves men, and therefore loving you is not going to be enough for her. She's going to have to love a lot of men. And so infidelity is just par for the course when getting in a relationship with someone like that. So the number of healthy women that still want a man in their life is so hard to find that you're almost better off just not even trying. On the other hand, it's very easy for a woman to find a good man. It's very easy. Because a man's love for a woman is very hardwired. It's very hardwired. And consequently, fidelity can also be difficult and challenging for a man, especially if he is being offered sexual access, if he is surrounded by women that are offering him sexual access, which is part of why we've arranged culture and society the way we have, and we've instructed women to be modest and not behave in such a manner. But perhaps it's time for men to develop and grow in a manner that culture and society has never really forced men to do. And by that I mean men need to shed their pathological love for women. They need to shed the instinct and I don't know, fall in love with virtue perhaps. Now that doesn't mean I'm suggesting that people should become gay, because that is what's happening now, because we've done all of this the wrong way. Women have taken an adversarial view of men. But I don't think empowerment needs to come coupled with being adversarial. We can have female and male empowerment such that they no longer need each other. Although, men never needed women, they just wanted women. They craved, they desired women. But on the other hand, women never really loved, genuinely wanted a man in their life. They felt like they needed it. And there was a period of time in the early 1900s where I think women were so swept up by the male fantasy of the princess and being rescued and saved and swept up that they thought they wanted that. But once they had power and independence, it became very evident to themselves and to the rest of the world that there was no real such desire to play toward a man's fantasies. But so, all around, it's generally good what's happening with the genders, because it's going to force men to let go of their irrational love of women. A very imbalanced love, a desire to want to rescue and save and provide and do all these things for her just because she's a woman. That's it. I mean, she could be homeless, or she could be a literal princess, and a man's pathological love will cause him to love them both equally. So it's completely illogical. A man's love for a woman is completely illogical and irrational. So I think by forcing men to go through this growth, which female empowerment is going to do, it's going to allow us to perhaps level up a little bit. Men need to level up and bring about some logic and rationality and principle and virtue into love, rather than it just being an automatic thing. Now, women did give up a pretty sweet deal. There was a pretty sweet deal that women gave up. But that was also preventing them from growing. It was also preventing women from developing and graduating from that phase of our development. And so women now have to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet and truly be self-sufficient and empowered. Now, unfortunately, we're kind of in this in-between phase of human development. We haven't quite gotten where this is leading to. I hope where this is leading to. And so there's a lot of men out there who are basically simps. This pathological veneration of the female sex has been summarized as simpism, being a simpleton when it comes to your relationship with women. And the empowered women are using this immature state that men are in to their advantage. So they're taking the empowerment and they're also leveraging men's immaturity and pathological love for women so they can get even extra power and extra advantage. So I'm going to use the power society is giving me, and I'm going to use the power that I can suck from the heart of a simp. This is very toxic. And so men, men have not been prepared for the moment we are living now in history. Women can leverage this to their advantage in many ways. Men really can't. Men are being leveraged. And so men have to be very, very careful. But the good news is that because men are going to get severely burned and also rejected. So on the one hand, there's the contingency of women that are just completely rejecting men. So men are just not finding a partner because of that, for that reason alone. And then there's a contingency of women that will attract the man, but only to destroy him. Have the child and then leave him and use the children as leverage for money, kind of an attitude. And there's various other variations of that. And then there's the women who genuinely have the same kind of pathological love that men have for women. There are women that have that for men, but it comes from a broken place. It comes from a broken place. And those women will destroy a man in a completely different way. They can destroy the soul of a man. And this is going to lead men, as it is doing currently, to suicide. It is leading men down to drugs. It is leading men to war, to want to fight, to just throw themselves into the front lines of some war. It's throwing men in a direction of death. And if you play this out long enough, what ends up happening is simps go extinct. It's tragic, sad. But perhaps the silver lining in this is that what will result, the only men that will survive to see the future are men who are far wiser. Far wiser. Men who are very selective. Very selective with the kind of woman they allow to enter their home. And then after that happens, all the toxicity in women will also die out. They will find that they can't, find a pathway. Their genes won't be able to find a pathway into the future because no man will allow her anywhere near him. So all this is to say that as shitty as things are right now, the long-term effect of it is positive. So we should take solace and comfort in that, rather than doing what some conservatives are doing and trying to think that we should go back to the way things used to be. And I'm even seeing this, I'm even seeing some women do this, like they want to pretend like they lived in the 50s and they start wearing dresses and talking differently and pretending like they're just a little doll and a little princess, and they're just going to cater to the man's dreams and fantasies, and like the whole trad wife movement. That's I'm telling you that to do that is to simply go back to another fantasy. Right now, we are all getting a heavy dose of reality, a heavy dose of realism. A big splash, a big bucket of ice water. Ironic that the whole ice bucket challenge became a thing during the same time that this sort of awakening is starting to happen with humanity. So, what freedom does, the emancipation of women, is it's allowing people to truly manifest what they want, what they've always wanted, rather than burying it deep and putting on a mask, pretending that you're something you're not, and allowing that gene to make it into the future. So right now, people's proclivities and desires are right there in the open. And men need to really, really wise up. Need to really wise up. And be very selective with the women they procreate with. Hopefully the woman you procreate with. Very selective. In some ways, perhaps, whether or not the outcome of this is positive really depends on whether or not men can grow up and grow out of their simplistic love for women. Traditionally, women have been the selectors, the ones who pick which man gets to procreate, because they've been the gatekeepers to sex, because men have almost always said yes when offered. You know, but I think we need to put an end to that. I think men need to grow out of that. Because if they don't, women will persist in the toxic state they're in now. Because why not capitalize on male simpism? That's what a lot of women are doing, is they're capitalizing on men that just can't help loving and adoring women. As long as it has legs, a vagina, and breasts, you know, a man is like, all of his rationality, his logic, his principles, his virtues, they go out the window. And that's terrible. Men need to grow out of that. The fact that a man can deeply love a woman, whether she is highly accomplished or homeless, tells you a lot about this pathological love that man feels for woman. And I think this might be the first time in human history where there is some evolutionary pressure to get men to evolve past this, to get men to graduate from that simplicity. And that evolutionary pressure are these highly, highly toxic and terrible women. Ironic, isn't it? Evolution and life and the universe is often very ironic. It takes something terrible to produce something good in the end. I've said it many times before that existence itself is always biased toward balance. And eventually balance finds a way. And I think we've been just living in a very unbalanced state for a long time, where women catered to the male fantasy. So the male fantasy is this idea that the man has that this woman, regardless of where she is, regardless of her status or where she's from or her name or anything, regardless of any of that, she's amazing. This is the fantasy that the man has. That this woman is a goddess. And women have been loving and enjoying that fantasy, and kind of even believed it themselves for a long time. They were swept into that fantasy and enjoyed just swimming in that realm. But that creates an imbalance, and that imbalance has created a lot of resentment that is almost inscribed in women's genes at this point. And the resentment comes from a feeling a lack of agency and a lack of being able to choose your own direction and path. And so now women are getting to choose, and they're having sleepovers with women and coordinating pajamas and embracing a kind of sisterhood and almost a tribal love of womanhood. They're getting into witchcraft. They like raising snakes. Not all of them, obviously. There are many subcategories within female empowerment. And they're getting to be what they want, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Because now, if you do find a woman who is healthy and genuinely wants a man, it's more likely to be the case that that's truly the truth for her, at least at that point in time. So things will become brighter. Things will become better. Don't fear. All of this is just part of the process of humanity growing up. Thanks for watching.